Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to another Vlogmas episode. For today's episode, we are going to be talking about food guilt, which is a very highly requested video, something that I get asked with every Q&A that I get very often in my comments and in my DMs. So if you are currently struggling with food guilt or anything like that, then I really hope that this video helps. As somebody who used to suffer with food guilt on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, I know how detrimental this can be for our mental health and just for our well-being in general. Guilt can last a really long time. Sometimes it goes away within the hour, and sometimes we are still thinking about something that we ate days ago. And because we continue to think and guilt ourselves for what we've eaten or for what we will eat, it makes it very hard to live life, and it also makes it really hard to enjoy food in the first place. And I see this saying all the time that food is fuel, but food is also so much more than fuel. It's memories and culture and tradition and love. And I think that that is really special. And unfortunately, food guilt can sometimes ruin things that, well, are meant to be very special to us. And instead of establishing core memories or traditions with our family, we are very distracted, and all that we can think about is the food that we've eaten or the way that the food has made us feel guilt. And the thing is, there are so many wonderful holiday favorites. I know that I definitely have holiday favorites. My favorite are probably cranberry sauce with turkey. I am a stuffing gal. I think that stuffing is chef's kiss amazing. There's mashed potatoes and bread, and usually a table full of desserts as well. And I know it can be overwhelming, but what makes this an even more overwhelming situation in the first place is the guilt that we associate with specific kinds of foods and specific holidays, as well as the conditions we put on ourselves sometimes, which an example of a condition is I can eat whatever I want, but in the new year, I need to go on this diet, or I need to restrict myself, or I need to exercise more, whatever we want to finish our sentence with. And that is a disordered thought because we don't need a reason to eat, period. Everybody has permission to eat no matter what. So first things first, let's talk about what food guilt is and why it happens in the first place. Because when we come out into this world, we do not have an ounce of guilt. No, we are not born with guilt. It is something that is pushed upon us and something that we internalize throughout our lives. So first things first, I want to talk about the difference between guilt and shame, okay? Because they kind of go hand in hand, but they are also very different. Guilt is when we feel like we have done something wrong. So for example, we enjoy our wonderful holiday meal and then we feel like we shouldn't have done that. Shame is feeling like you are wrong for doing something. So we're not so much blaming the food, we're not so much regretting our decisions, but we think that we are bad. So I just wanted to make that little distinction. A lot of the times they go hand in hand. We feel bad, but we also believe that we are bad. And so I just wanted to make sure that we talk about the difference between those two before we continue on. So food guilt, it makes us feel like we've done something wrong. So it almost feels like we've reverted back to childhood. We are, this small, innocent, fragile child, and we've broken a rule. And people are telling us that we've done something wrong, that we are bad, that we should feel bad, that we have something to atone for, or something that we need to apologize for. I'm gonna tell you this right now. You never have to be sorry for eating. You never have to apologize for it. Never. But I know that eating gets very difficult when we add guilt on top of the equation. It's awful and it's exhausting to have these kinds of thoughts in your head on repeat 24/7. And as adults, right, it's almost as if you've lost agency over your relationship with food. You are actually no longer the one in control. If you don't actually have a choice, and if you feel there is only one right way to eat, or some foods that we should avoid completely, there's no decision process there, there's no choice. If you feel out of control around certain types of food, all that that means is that you are trying to control yourself too much. Food should be easy. And if it isn't, then that means that there is some work that needs to be done. And we are adults. Shouldn't we be able to eat what we want, what we desire, what sounds good without guilt? We should. But of course, it is a heck of a lot easier said than done. So as I mentioned before, we are not just brought into this world with a cloud of guilt over our head. This is something that is instilled in us ever since we were young. Not only are certain foods demonized and seen as good or bad or healthy or unhealthy, but certain bodies are also demonized and beauty standards are pushed on us every single year. And those beauty standards change every single year. Bodies go in and out of style. And the reason that that happens is so that the beauty industry just makes more money. That's it. Point blank, period. And I know that that can be really hard to wrap our head around, but that is the truth of the matter. The beauty industry and diet industry and wellness industry doesn't care about you. And I promise you that they really do not care about your health. They don't. Because if they cared about your health, they would not be pushing morality on you. They would not be telling you if you were bad for doing something. Because having a healthy and balanced relationship with food is way more important than guilting yourself out of eating something. That's not healthy, but that's what the diet industry pushes. And this kind of diet rhetoric or morality rhetoric of you are good, you are bad, these are good foods, these are bad foods, has been pushed on us for a very long time. We see this in TV shows, we hear this on podcasts, we see magazine covers, while we are standing in line at the grocery store with ridiculous titles, like actually ridiculous. Some of us grow up in homes with parents who are constantly dieting or obsessed with health, which is just a repackaged version of orthorexia with a little bow on top. And in general, social media has picked up so much, at least in my lifetime, and now we have an added barrier. Not only do we potentially hear triggering diet content at home and in schools, but now we also have this online space. And anyone, including myself, can post anything online. Anything. I try my hardest to have everything that I say rooted in science. I read books all the time. I read accredited articles. I read the new scientific evidence that comes out. I try my best to root myself in facts. Does that mean I'll never slip up? Absolutely not. But there are so many people out there who do not root any of their content with science or with evidence. They have their own personal stories and their own narrative that they've concocted, and they try to make some kind of brand out of it. I'm not gonna name drop, I'm not gonna give examples. I think that you can probably find some on your own because there are so many people and so many influencers that come out with detox teas, which just make you shit your pants. They come out with their diet plans, which literally aren't even enough to feed a 3-year-old. Like, it's just, I'm so tired of this shit. Like, this is the reason why I do, is because there's so much misinformation online. And not only misinformation from people who are uneducated, but misinformation from people who are also meant to be experts in this field. We have doctors classifying food as healthy and unhealthy. And I know that some food has more nutritional value than others. And that is beside the point, because we can clearly say that there are some foods that have more vitamins, more nutrients, more minerals, whatever you want to put there. But unhealthy? What's unhealthy is labeling food. And honestly, I really need to make an entire video on fitness YouTubers because most of them have a really twisted perspective on food. There was somebody, again, I'm not name dropping, I'm not putting anything in this video because I do not want to ever send hate to a specific individual. But there was a YouTuber who was perpetuating false information when it came to sugar. And basically this YouTuber was saying that sugar makes you die earlier on in life. And you know what her reference was? Guess what her reference was. Yeah, a gossip magazine, nothing actually rooted in science. Online spaces can be very dangerous and very difficult to navigate while you're suffering from disordered eating. And honestly, there are many people in the online space whose goal is to help other people, and I see that. But when you hold on to disordered thoughts yourself, you end up just hurting people more. Be very curious about the people that you are watching. Do they actually have a very neutral lens when it comes to food? Or do they use words like healthy, unhealthy, good, bad? Or do they try to compensate for their food with things like movement or things like fasting, etc.? It is so confusing and exhausting to navigate the world we live in. There's literally diet culture everywhere. So why is holiday guilt or moralizing food bad in the first place? It puts us in a constant state of confusion Because on one hand, there are many foods that sound good, many foods that we want to try and enjoy, foods that we crave and foods that our body is asking us for. And then on the other hand, we have part of ourselves tell us that we cannot indulge in those foods, that we cannot have them, or that we shouldn't. So here we are, wanting something and telling ourselves that we can't have it, which really puts us in a confusing limbo. I just want to say right now that your body is so much smarter than you think it is. Your mind doesn't know better than your body. If we have any sort of disordered thoughts, our mind is always going to try to stop us from getting pleasure, stop us from eating enough, stop us from eating what we actually want to eat. And I also want to say that our fear of specific foods or our fear of feeling guilty after specific foods is not because of the food itself. It's not because, for example, we are afraid of pie, but it's what we are afraid is going to happen if we eat that pie. So let me give you an example. If I eat the pie, my eating disorder tells me that I'm going to gain weight, which my eating disorder tells me is bad. And if I gain weight, my fear is that I will not be loved, or that I will not be accepted, or that I will not feel comfortable in my body, etc. So the fear that we are actually working with when we really strip things back is not the food, but it's something we think is going to happen if we engage with those foods. And in our society, we are expected to demonize weight gain. We are expected to see it as a bad thing. But if you need to control the amount that you eat in order to maintain a certain size, then honey, your body is not comfortable there. It isn't. And another expectation that is pushed upon us is that these foods are only allowed at specific times of the year. And this causes a binge restrict cycle. So many people say, well, I can only have this around Christmas, so why don't I go crazy? Why don't I have everything that I want and feel sick? Because tomorrow or because next week or next year, I'm not allowed these foods. And I understand that some foods are seasonal, but you need to give yourself unconditional permission to eat food. You have permission to get seconds, but you also have permission to stop if you feel good. Part of working against food guilt is giving yourself that permission, even if you don't feel like it's something that you deserve. Give yourself the permission. Say it over and over and over again that you have permission to eat, that you have permission to enjoy these foods, even if you don't feel it. Say it anyway. Say it anyway. So we are expected to avoid weight gain. We are also expected to only eat these foods at this time of year. And we are also expected to burn off our food according to society. There are no conditions when it comes to eating. There is no fine print. There's nothing that we need to do in order to deserve eating. And so when we avoid certain foods, they can become fears. Because when we avoid anything, they're going to be scary. If I don't go to the doctor for 10 plus years, the next time I go to a doctor, I'm probably gonna be a bit spooked and a bit anxious. If you haven't had a food in a very long time and you are afraid of it, that is normal. And a normal reaction to fear as human beings is to avoid it. Right? We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to be scared. We want to run away from these things. But running away from those fear foods is gonna hurt you so much more in the long run versus the temporary discomfort that you will feel while you challenge them. And I know that it's stressful. I know that seeing family in general can be stressful. Trust me, I know that. And then we have this added stress of the food, but I promise you, if we're constantly trying to live in a restricted state, or if we're constantly guilting ourselves for the rest of our life, that's going to feel so much more uncomfortable and so much more stressful versus facing what makes you afraid right now. So what do we do? How do we handle food guilt? Well, let's talk about it. The first thing that I want you to recognize and notice is that when you have a thought that is accompanied with the word should, so I should not eat that, I should eat that, I should stop, I shouldn't have seconds, etc., that usually comes from your false self, from your inner critic, from your eating disorder voice. That is where that thought situates. That thought is very black and white. It's good or bad. It's wrong or right. Instead, there is a lot of gray area that we're not talking about. So when those should thoughts come up, I should exercise, I should go on a diet, I should do this. When those thoughts come up, I want you to label them as eating disorder thoughts or disordered thoughts. Separate them from yourself. It's easier to be more curious about them if they're not a part of who you are. We don't want to criticize ourselves. We want to be more critical of those thoughts in general, and so establishing that separation is going to be a lot easier to navigate those thoughts. Something else that I want you to do is think of your body as someone or something that you can trust. And I know that that can be hard, especially if you've ever suffered from an eating disorder. There is so much distrust, and our mind makes us hate our body and do everything in our power to fight against it. But think about how your body has cared for you. You get a bruise, what happens? Your body tries to repair you. You catch an illness, what does your body do? It tries to take care of you and heal you from the inside out. Your body for your entire life has done everything to keep you alive and to keep you well, no matter how you've treated it. Your body has always been there for you. How could something that your body is asking for possibly be wrong if your body's goal is to keep you alive and happy? When you were young, you trusted your body. It changed, it grew, and it did that because it was caring for you, not because you did something wrong. You can trust your body over your mind. Your body is going to let you know when you've had enough, and it's also going to let you know when you need more. And if you need to work on those hunger cues, then I posted a video on mechanical eating that could potentially be helpful, especially with the holidays. But if your body is giving you those cues, and if it is telling you what it needs, we want to try our best to listen and to say out loud, I trust you, even if you don't. The more you repeat it over and over and over again, the easier it's going to become. But you've probably had these thoughts and feelings around food for a really long time, so they're not going to go away in one holiday season. They're not going to go away with one meal of repeating these affirmations and mantras. You need to be consistent, and you need to show up for yourself frequently. You need to fight those thoughts on a daily basis. And I know that that is really exhausting. And if I could just snap my fingers and make your mind no longer a battleground, I would. But in order to get through, you have to go through it. There's no way around, there's no easy way, there's no tip or trick that will get rid of food guilt completely. But one thing that I talk about in a lot of my videos, and I know has helped many of you, is to think about adding instead of subtracting. Always add, never take away. And you can add as much to your meals as you would like. Leftovers are okay. I know that they can be triggering sometimes, and I know that they can be scary, but there is nothing inherently wrong with them. You can bring food home and have it tomorrow. You have to give yourself that permission that we were talking about earlier on in this video. Your body is begging you for permission. It's begging you to love it the way that it loves you. And I know that that's hard, but what's harder is spending your entire life hating yourself. I spent 10 years doing that, and now that I've come out on the other side, I can't even tell you how beautiful it is here. To look in the mirror and to have my instinct be to compliment myself, to reassure myself when things go wrong, to be gentle with myself when I make mistakes, this is just something that takes a lot of practice. And I know that if you're watching this video, you are probably really freaking hard on yourself. Tell yourself that you're doing a good job. Do it right now. Give yourself a hug. Tell yourself that you are proud of yourself. Recovering in a world like ours is not easy, and the fact that you even want to try, I'm so proud. It makes me so incredibly emotional, as you can tell, probably, to know that so many of you are going into the holiday season struggling, because I know what that felt like, and it did not feel good. It made me hate the holidays. And the reason that I make videos like this is so that people don't have to feel the way that I did for as long. So people don't have to feel that way forever. You don't have to hate yourself. It's not the only option. Even though it feels like the easier option, it is not in the long term. Anyway, I went on a bit of a tangent there. I'm good. I'm refocusing. Let's bring it back to the food guilt. I know that it can be very tempting to make weight loss goals or workout goals or things like that, especially in the new year, but also around the holiday season as a way to compensate for what we've eaten. But make different goals. Make recovery-based goals. Make goals to enjoy yourself as much as you can. Make goals to talk back to that inner critic every time it comes up. Make different goals. Go in with a mindset of recovery, of food freedom. Make a goal that will actually help you. Even though it might hurt in the moment, we know that long term, that is a more appropriate goal for us than anything else. And the last tip, and probably one of the hardest tips, and the one that took me the longest to participate in myself, is to have self-compassion. If it's okay for other people, then it also has to be okay for you. Be kind to yourself, and also understand that if you're struggling with guilt or shame around the holiday season or around food in general, that's okay. And it's not your fault. It is absolutely not your fault. And so don't blame yourself for a single second. And if we are working in baby steps, then we are working in baby steps, because it is better than remaining in the same place forever. So what is your goal for this week? What are you going to do? How are you going to change the way you talk to yourself? Create a goal, and if you feel comfortable, maybe leave it in the comments down below, but don't overwhelm yourself. Recovery doesn't happen in one night, in one day. It can take years, and I know that that can be daunting. But think of all of the life and all of the memories and opportunities that we will gain if we work on it right now. I love you, and you are so important, and I'm so happy that you are here, and I wish that I could just give you the biggest hug ever. But for now, we have this video, and I hope that it gives you some kind of safety and comfort. And when shit gets hard, I hope that you feel comfy coming back. If you like videos like this, or if you have any other videos that you would like to see in the new year or during this Vlogmas season, just leave some suggestions down below. Make sure to do something kind for yourself today. Bye, friends.